Friends, family, and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog. This one is labelled Year 2 Blog 45, or in legacy numbers, Blog 97. And today it's the 31st of the 12th, 2023. Yes, it's New Year's Eve. And anybody who remembers last year would know that I'd be doing this on New Year's Day. And in some ways, I'm glad that I'm not doing it on New Year's Day. Although I've had plenty of time off, it's been mostly sick, with my bad back and knee, going to bed to see if more rest will help, etc., etc. And of course, some things just take their time to get better. I haven't found it easier going for walks, but I've tried to push myself, and I felt quite giddy in the mornings. I thought it was something about the way I was sleeping, like pinching your neck or something with having your pillows too high or whatever. But I tend to find that it's when I look up or at certain angles, or if I'm looking down, quickly. So something for me to be concerned with, but something for me to work on in the new year. The back slowly gets a little bit better. I'm finding a few more comfort areas to sort of like sit in. And it's been a very, very quiet week. I've hoped all of you have had absolutely fantastic Christmases. Mine have turned out quiet. I'll say that. I'm not going to say bad, even though everybody has their own opinion on what they want out of Christmas. And I've always, missed earlier Christmases. But you realise those earlier Christmases were when you were, A, younger, B, more family and friends around, etc., etc. So when it came to Christmas, there was the obvious Christmas present from my mother, who's 82, so she's not going to go shopping, so she gave me some money, which really isn't a present to open, is it? And my uncle and aunt bought me a Christmas present, and unfortunately my mother opened it by accident. Not that it was anything drastic. I mean, it was 4 cans of Budweiser and a tin of shortbread biscuit. But it's the thought, I suppose. Personally, I would have thought my uncle and aunt would know some of my hobbies by now. might have given me something. But it was there. But I didn't open it. So I had nothing to open, absolutely no presents whatsoever. And therefore, the presents that, that I could actually use came from people like you guys. I could name people. I don't know whether they'll appreciate that, but my friend Denny, he bought me a game. Steve, you'll recognize these names a little bit later on, bought me a game. I bought a few games for people. Jambon has accepted his, Steve has accepted his, Pond has accepted his. There's still Robert to accept his. I hope he does shortly. And I got a monetary gift from my mate, Mainmeister. Thank you so much for all those people that thought about me. It was a delight to know that people would appreciate that I might not be having a great time. And every single one was really, really appreciative. Like I say, for me, I was glad I was the other side of Christmas. We're now approaching New Year's Day, and then we go back to work. And we have to remember that New Year's is at different times for everybody. I mean, the time I'm recording this, the New Year celebrations have started the other side of the world. And for our friends in Scotland, they get an extra day, so they won't be going back to work on the 2nd. And there is just today and tomorrow as sort of a holiday. And what have I been doing this week? I've spent the time, because of back and knee problems and all of that sort of stuff, taking full advantage of certain websites that are not giving you a counter clock to download stuff. You know what I mean by that? Where you download, but you need to also upload the same amount. Otherwise, you will be capped. There's what they call free download, or the word free leech comes to mind. And with me not doing so much with my Mister, I decided to download some of the bigger files, like PlayStation, Sega Saturn, Dreamcast, some of those things, so that I can put them onto my Mister, and next year I'll be able to use those because they're so large that I've never really bothered with them. And I'm using something called a ROM manager, and everything I download as packs, I'm using a ROM manager to filter out Japanese, French, German prototypes, betas, all of that. So something that would have something like 25,000 ROMs suddenly goes down to just the English full releases, at a much manageable level, and saves you space. So obviously all of that takes time, and that's where my time's been taken up. Normally it would be taken up with playing a game or something, but I've tended to find I've not been able to sit well, and so I thought more relaxing there. I did do another test on my VR. That's my VR system down there. There was another mixed reality game that was in the sale, called Home Invasion. And it's much the same as that First Encounter game that I did a test on, where you draw the room, or should I say scan the room, then you draw the edges, and then you display where the furniture is, and then you scan the boundary where you can walk, so nothing is in the way. You have to put your arms out so it recognizes how far you can reach your arms out without hitting something, like the clock off of the the fire mantelpiece. And what it does then, it has reality walls, in other words, your living room, and you draw where the window would be and where the door would be, and you put a couple of doors and a window, as many as you want, really. And those turn into the VR graphic-y bits, right? And the idea is you're trapped, and there's a beacon, and the beacon is broken, and you fix the beacon, and then you've got 10 minutes to survive before you're going to be lifted out of this cabin, right, which is just your room. While that's going on, zombies with Santa hats start smashing through the doors. Now they start buckling it because it's made of metal, and you fire your gun through the windows. But eventually they start to break through, and they come into the room after you. And that's when you start using a baseball bat, smashing them about a bit. Not only that, but globules of, I can only imagine, worms grow out of this glob and start coming at you, and they go on your arm and start eating you, and you have to shake your arm off, shake them off your arm. And if you get to the end of 10 minutes, you win. I haven't gone past 5 minutes yet. Oh, yeah, shit. I've run out of bullets. They all start crowding round me. I start getting distracted by the beacon that keeps getting broken. But it's fun. Absolute fun. I mean, it is fun. It's not for everybody because some people just don't like zombies. People who don't like zombies, try First Encounters. That's cuddly little tribbles that basically you have to shoot and then collect, which comes free with the headset. This game was in the sale. I think it was like £7 over Christmas. I think it's back up now to £12. But marvelous. I had great fun with that. And then because I bought the headset, they released just before Christmas a full-priced AAA game, right? That was free to people that bought the headset, but costs money for other people. And it's called Asgardian's Wrath 2. And oh my God, the resolution, the sense of immersion in this game is incredible. You've got to kill Loki. You've got to kill him with a special sword, I think. But you ride on the back of an eagle. You land on these plinths where there's towers of gods that you have to pray to. It's amazing. I'll try and do a video of it, but it won't be the same because you've got to remember that with VR, it's all about the immersion. It's all about the all-encapsulating area being filled. Every single 360 degrees is around you. So, you know, you get that sense, you know, of depth. So I played that. Other than that, I've been playing on a few retro ones. You know, I played on a couple of Game Boy games, not Game Boy Advance, Game Boy games, you know. I played on a couple of Game Boy Advance games, of course. And I had a little quick go on the Lynx. You know, I haven't played the Lynx in years. Only had it for a short period of time. So my nostalgia is not so much about Game Gear, Lynx, you know, that sort of stuff. Even the Atari Jaguar I never had, but played under emulation a long time ago, and I've never gone back to it. And so I've been constantly on the lookout. You know, people like Steve have got that lovely hard drive image of their BBC games, and I haven't got that. I've only got the disc images. So I've been looking for things like that, you know. And it's nice because although it's not playing games, you're downloading them. You're prepping yourself ready for next year when you do have some time, and you can then play them. And I don't have to think about it again. So, yeah, it's been really fun. Just have a little bit of a drinko. Oh, that's better. So, yeah, that's been fun. And you've got to imagine that over Christmas telly has been atrocious. So you'd think I'd be watching a few films, and even with that, I've not done so much. Falling asleep, that sort of stuff, because of my tablets. So I've sort of I tell you what I've done. I've recorded so much over the year on my Sky Q box, which is just under the telly, that I've started to watch those and clear down the hard drive, so I've got space to record. So although crap was on, I was getting caught up with stuff I'd recorded during the year, like the Lazarus Project 2. That was what I watched over Christmas. So yeah, I filled my time. I've spent time with my mum. There's only the garlands to take down in the living room, the things that you hang around the tops of your wall sills. The Christmas tree is all taken down, so is all the baubles and the tinsel and all the cards and all of those sort of things. They're all taken down. And there's just putting it in the attic now, which will be a bit of a strain on my leg. But I'll try and do that New Year's Day. Get another day's rest on my knee and back, and push them up there. And worst case scenario, I'll push them up into the attic and push them further into the attic, away from the hole that I have to crawl into. And then when I'm a little bit better, I'll crawl all the way up and then put them against the wall where they came from this year. So anyway, that's sort of like been my week. I will say Happy New Year now, as well as I will do at the end. And I don't know about you, but there are traditions with New Year of writing resolutions. If you look at my blog last year, I've always had the same resolution for the last, must be 20 years, because I don't really believe in them. But somebody mentioned at work to me, many, many years ago, 20, must be 30 years ago, he said, the only resolution I write is do things differently next year because this next year, because this year it didn't work. Which basically means to basically just do the opposite of what he did. Right? And so it's a nothing resolution. I'm a little bit like Mainmeister. I don't understand people that go, right, I'm going to start my diet on the 2nd. And, you know, where they could be doing it right there and then, or just building up to it or whatever. But I say I don't understand it, but I do, because I'm a little bit like that when it comes to waking up. I set my alarm clock 10 minutes early, because when I wake up, I go, I just want to lie here for 5 minutes. And then I wait for the clock to reach an even number, or, you know, even like on a 5-minute thing, you know, like I won't get up at, I don't know, 6:54, but I will get up at 7 o'clock or 6:55 or 7:05, you know. I won't wake up on any of the other digits between it. Weird. But that's just years and years of a regime. You know what I mean? So that's my New Year's resolution. Do things differently than I did last year. Because last year it didn't work. And so we'll do the normal. And you can imagine at the end there's not going to be really much, because nothing's been delivered during the week apart from one thing, which I'll show you at the end. So, the news, that's how we always start, don't we? And the war continues, regardless of all our celebrations, goodwill to others, etc. Goodwill to others doesn't come into it when there's a war on. So, in the war, Ukraine carried out a series of strikes on the Russian border city of Belgorod the day after the day after an 18-hour aerial barricade across Ukraine. So Russia released an 18-hour barricade of missiles at Ukraine, and Ukraine retaliated. So this 18-hour barricade across Ukraine killed 41 civilians. The Russian officials say that the attack killed 21 people and 3 children, but the Ukrainian media stated that the attacks were all military targets and that it was all propaganda in regards to the civilians that the Russians have mentioned. And that's basically the news, really. So it was a tit-for-tat battle. Russians started a huge wave of attacks. Ukraine retaliated against military targets. Russians say it killed civilians. All I can say is not a great start to the new year. We want this war ended. We'd like to go back to normal. What is normal now, though? I have to question, is there a new normal now? That we're just going to keep at this level and we'll count that as normal? I think we will, for a long time anyway. And then there's just the UK news. My thoughts are always with Ukraine. We want the war to end. And let's hope it's soon. There's only little bits in the UK news. Floods have caused disruption all this week. That's because of Storm Gerrit. There's been flooding, winds, gales, all that sort of stuff. Lots and lots of little brittle branches are on the floor, along with huge big ones where the wood's rotted and the winds just pushed it over. A sight to see when you go for your walk, I can tell you. Eurostar service, that's the train service, has returned to normal service after flooding. Yes, the flooding was caused because of the Thames embankment and because of all of the storms. So there you go, disruption to travel. It mentioned today that energy bills are to go up by £100 a year starting in the next quarter. As I said, doom and gloom. They always put something in the papers about on New Year's Eve, and it's always bad. I remember watching the news, and every year it was always about the train tickets. The new train tickets come into effect, the pricing on the 2nd of January, and they've gone up by this percentage, etc. And I'm fully expecting a barrage of that in the news later on today. And just to mention that somewhere in the world now it's 2024. Wish you a merry 2024. And the last one is a rest in peace to an actor, Tom Wilkinson, who was an OBE. He died on the 30th of December, aged 75. Now, I have seen a number of films that Tom Wilkinson's been in. I remember him in Full Monty, Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, which was with Jim Carrey, and Batman Begins. But I remember him mostly from a HBO miniseries, which I watched because it contained an actor that I really, really like. He's in the TV series Billions. His name's Paul Gianti. He was in he's been in loads of films, but just recently I find his performances mesmerizing. Anyway, he played John Adams. I think he's the second president of America. And Tom Wilkinson played in that dramatization. I think it's 5 episodes long. It's one of my favorite HBO releases. Not one that you can. It's sort of akin to me remembering miniseries in my childhood, like Roots. You know, where you were gripped watching this miniseries over the whole of the week. You know, it was a 3, 4, 5 episode miniseries about Kunta Kinte, wasn't it? Kunta Kinte? Yeah. Well, this is about John Adams, and it's about the American independence and how the British started the laws up over there. The Americans took that law and adapted it to themselves, and eventually the British retreated and they had their Independence Day. The British tended to find that they were overstretched, needed to return their boats to fight battles closer to home, and decided that the Americas weren't really something to continue with, and beat the British to a defeat, if you want to call it that, and you now have the Americas as we know them. That's how I understand the American Civil War. And yeah, John Adams, what a miniseries. Definitely one to watch out for. And that's the end of the news. So we're just going to do some shout outs now. You know I do my shout outs. I love the shout outs. These are all people that have watched my last blog or some of my blogs, decided that they wanted to write. Some of them leave questions, all of them wishing me well. And my salute to you guys. You made my week. You basically make me smile, thinking that, hey, if I do go, I might be missed. They might start asking questions. Where's he gone? Is he alive? You know, and some of you might find out. You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. So, bit morbid that. We'll move on. So the shout-outs this week are to, in no particular order, Martroid, Roberts Retro Gaming, Paul Patrick, Gaming Since the 70s, Colin Jones, Ponder, Wee Bob Art, Ian Hill, The Ramblings, LFC Gamer and Vlogs, and Denny. And of course, I can't miss my old mate Mainmeister, because he actually left a comment on that zombie game. And that is a comment, so of course it's mentioned. And we'll move to the questions. Yes, so noticing by that list, it's not huge, but it's enough for this to take, a good section of my blog. And we'll start off in no particular order. It's just in the order as I opened it. And the first one there is Denny. So you know what that means? It means I'm going to have to take a drink. Because it's like singing 3 songs in succession, reading out his comments. He knows I love them. So, here we go with Denny. Hiya, mate. Hope you're feeling a little bit better after our chat the other day. Yeah, he knew I was feeling giddy. I sat in that chair just next to me and chatted rather than did a StreamYard chat, because I just felt so giddy I didn't want to get up out the chair. I thought that the longer I stayed still, the better. He carries on. I don't think Christmas will come back the way it was during the 80s. This year has been the most un-Christmas I've ever known. No feeling, no holiday mood, no shops catering for festive produce and food, no carols in the shopping centres, and no decorations to speak of. Hardly anyone has put up decorations on their houses either. I need the ghost of Christmas past to take me back to a time when I felt special. And I totally get that. I look down our street, and obviously the Christmas decorations outside are the ones that you see, because it's dark at night now, very early. And there's 4 houses out of a long street like mine. And yeah, it would have been 8, 12 out there. But can you power those lights outside your house when you can't afford the electricity bill inside? Yeah, poor. But, I expected it to a point. No need to get upset over the ending of our live stream. For me, it was one of the best nights I've had, chatting with you about Christmas past and present. Everyone who joined it made it something I won't forget. I'm still buzzing, and yeah, and so was I. If you're not sure what we're talking about, we did a 3.5 hour live stream last week. It was the eve of Christmas Eve, and basically we did a bar humbug Christmas, and we talked about why Christmas is bad, and about Christmas past, what TV we watched, what TV we're expecting to watch this Christmas. And everybody that was there left a comment and filled it in, and we had a great time. And obviously we're going to make something regular. We're going to do something in January, TV, film, computer game related, and we'd all love you to join. Everybody has encouraged us, and we don't want to make it like a weekly thing. I thought about it being bi-weekly, every 2 weeks, but I think a month for each one, and do a special one, and then talk as long as we want to about a particular subject, and then fill in with extras, so it could become every 2 weeks. Do you see what I'm getting at? So, it all depends on our working and all that sort of stuff. Den is a very busy person, and he also works nights. I'm a busy person, but of course I work during the day, and I start early, so I finish earlier. So I tend to have a little bit more in the evenings, but he might have to work a week of evenings. So, yeah, a tricky one, but that's collaboration for you. And I tell you what, it gives me something to look forward to. If I'm having a bad week, I can say the following week, hey, I'm looking forward to that live stream I'm doing. Might just help me out this year. So we continue. As for Laurel and Hardy, I was going to drop a few words here, but I think it's best kept for another day, if you know what I mean. We were talking over the phone about Laurel and Hardy and how much fun they gave us, and the possibility of a special on those. Loved Ian's question on the worst classic Doctor Who story. For me, it has to be Paradise Towers. Truly awful. The Candyman monster series was called Happiness Patrol. Yeah. That whole season, there was Dragonfire, Paradise Towers, Happiness Patrol. Was such a bad time, I think, for Sylvester McCoy. It wasn't until the following year that he got into the mystery of Who again. There was too much of this, playing the spoons, being erratic, and having crazy creatures like Bertie Bassett monsters and so forth. There was some good in those stories, some great actors, but not particularly great acting. Do you see what I mean? It's almost like having Patrick Stewart do Hamlet, but doing his worst performance in it. It's still Hamlet, but you know it could be better. Do you know what I mean? And he was just having an off day. Sort of like that is the best way to sort of like put it in. Wee Bob Art and his time travel question made me think time travel is a paradox in itself. If it was invented in the future, we would already know about it because someone would have already travelled to the past, causing the paradox. Yeah, this is timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, watch Back to the Future and every other time travel thing to work out every argument. So you could be pro-time travel, somebody will be anti-time travel, somebody who's anti-travel will then be pro-time travel, each bouncing off of each other. Yeah, but, you know, maybe we've learned from our mistakes and we were extra careful. No, that won't happen because you cause a paradox by coming back and doing all this. You're in, you know, because you were there or whatever. Oh, it's a nightmare. At the end of the day, I said it last week, my thoughts are we haven't discovered every, I think, English word. We haven't discovered every mathematical formula. There is a science out there that we haven't discovered yet. There are elements that we found on our planet, but then as we go out further from our planets, we'll probably find other elements. We are not reached the border where we've discovered everything and we then have to put the puzzle pieces together to get something else. We're still discovering. And from that point of view, anything is possible. And I like to keep it that way in my head. And you can chastise me for that, but that's how I look at life. It's like I don't think this is the greatest game. There's always a game around the corner that's going to kick me up the arse and say, no, that wasn't. This is the best game, and so forth and so forth. You just keep moving forward. He continues, I think the subject of 4K Blu-ray players was brought up. If anyone's interested, I recommend Mr. DVD. Just search for him on Google. I've had 3 players off him, all worked as sold. Yeah, everybody's got their own opinion on the best 4K player in their price range, and I have to add that. I hope I helped Mainmeister when he was asking me questions about a 4K Blu-ray player. I'm hoping he's got great enjoyment out of it. It is all down to budget. There are pros and cons to them all. Not one does everything unless you go into the £1,000 mark. And yes, there are 4K players and they do cost £1,000. Like I say, it's all down to what you want. I've got, I think, the best pound per power player that you can get. My one, if you wanted to know, is the Panasonic 9000. It's not exactly the newest player out there anymore. The 820, which is just below it, keeps getting revised. It is a middle of the range player and is beautiful. So there you go. Looks just like, by the way, the 9000 as well. So thanks for that tip as well, Denny. So with 2023 about to vanish in the rear view mirror, my question for this week is this. The three main 8-bit computers back in the 80s, the ZX Spectrum, the Commodore 64, and the Amstrad CPC, if you could make one computer out of them, all using the best bits of each other of them, what bits would you take off each one to make it the ultimate 8-bit computer? Oh, wow. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned the Spectrum, because I always considered the Spectrum's power was actually its price. So I can't really take... I mean, you're not going to turn around and say, I want the best 8-bit computer, so I'm going to have that rubber keyboard, because it wasn't a great keyboard. I'll have the graphic chip out of it. Didn't have one. I'll take the RAM out of it then. It didn't have the maximum amount of RAM the others had. So it's a bit difficult. You can't even turn around and say, okay, well, it had a lot of ports at the back then, you know, for connectability. No, didn't have that. The Spectrum was an incredible machine, but it was an incredible machine because it was just like that saying I just said, pound for power. It was incredibly cheap and it was powerful. And you could do wondrous things if you had the knowledge to do it. But it wasn't. There's nothing in it, I think, really, that I'd want to take out of it. Its reliability was the same as others. So you couldn't even say the reliability of it. The Commodore 64 is my computer. The one that I had and played on the most. Even though I had a Spectrum and an Amstrad for a period of time. And the problems it had were manifold. You know, some said the colours weren't vibrant. Graphics were blocky. Another one. Ports were not standard. Yeah, to an extent. Missing things like a reset button. There was all these little things, right? The Amstrad's strength, I think, was more, again, it's all-in-oneness of having the tape deck built in. The colour graphics mode had more colours, but it didn't have sprites. So maybe I'll take the colour capability of the Amstrad and put that into the Commodore 64. The sound chip, although good in the Amstrad, it didn't beat the SID chip. So you wouldn't take that. I think it had a slightly more better compatibility in ports on the back. I think it did have a serial port. Not sure. Can't remember now. My God. Even the Commodore 64 came with a built-in monitor when you consider the SX64, even if it was 5-inch. Or less. Can't quite remember if it was 4 or 5-inch. I think it was 5-inch. So, really, there's only the colour and the graphic modes that I'd want to take. Oh, and an improved BASIC. You know, obviously, the BASIC inside the Commodore 64 was rough. All peaks, all pokes, all sys commands to do anything. And I don't even think, and I'm just going to turn my sound off. I do apologise. I thought I'd done it. There we go. Forgot where I was now. That was stupid. Bloody phone. The BASIC, I know that I would copy across because it was just pretty awful. And you had to do sort of like machine code, really, to get any speed. Oh, yes. So the 6502 processor, I'd keep that, but I'd speed it up. It was just too slow. There are other 6502 processors that ran faster. So I wouldn't necessarily say, yeah, I'm going to replace the 6502 with a Z80 processor. The Z80, though, was clocked, well, you know, so much faster. So I'm going to leave it there. That's an interesting question. Sort of like, if you were to cannibalize these three machines, what would you put in each one? But the Commodore 64, again, is the center one, and I was taking them out of the others and putting them there because you'd have to replace so much others in the others, like, oh yeah, I'd have to copy across sprites, copy across sound, move, etc., etc. You'd be replacing more than you were keeping with the others. So, great question. Thank you. And then you end with Happy New Year, my friend, and pass on my best New Year wishes to your mother. Look forward to next year, doing many, many more live streams with you, as it's been an absolute blast. And you can absolutely guarantee it, Denny. Thank you so much. Fantastic, and Happy New Year to you. And please have a restful one. Hopefully, you're not working. I know if you're working nights, you could be going in on the 10 o'clock on New Year's Day. Who wants that? Jesus. And so we move on, and we get to Ian Hill, the Ramblings, yeah. And he says, hope you and your mum had a happy Christmas and your back has been giving you less pain. Yeah, I'm finding a few more comfortable parts, and it's just a slow process. I'm glad it's over now, but maybe next year we'll be able to celebrate in a more traditional way, to find that genuine happiness that Dickens portrayed and I felt in my childhood. Life has taken away our innocence, and with it a belief that it's a magical, peaceful time of year. I think because of what's happened with Doctor Who, I wanted to immerse myself again in a series that I fell in love with in the 90s. It was the X-Files for the first 5 or 6 seasons of brilliant storytelling, and it's a great journey following Mulder and Scully for a time and the height of its popularity. It became a cultural phenomenon in the mainstream. I remember loving it from the moment in the UK we started showing it in 1994 on BBC Two. So I started to watch the series again and wanted to share how much I loved it. So I started to review the first season, an episode each week on my channel, after my growing disappointment and dissatisfaction with the latest Russell T Davies Doctor Who. It's been wonderful to relive the sheer joy of loving the X-Files. Yeah, my God, big block of text there, but dissect it a little bit. Yeah, Doctor Who was a disappointment. It won't be for the new ones. I'm not going to turn around and say it was terrible, because for every old person and an old codger like me that goes, up you, Russell T Davies, and you've totally destroyed my childhood, there is a new childhood he's starting. So, with that, I have to sort of like go, yeah. X-Files, yeah, what a memory. It was one of those must-watches. It was so strong. I remember that, I think it was Dark Horse or IDW Comics brought out an X-File comic, and that comic sold out, and they had to do a second printing and a third printing, which was unheard of in 1994, because comics were on a decline and were close to bankruptcy, if I remember rightly. Following on from that, they brought out a trading card line where you could have a 90 card set of the first season, the second season, the third season, all the pictures of the TV series with a description on the back. I've got trading cards. I've still got them all. Most of mine are Marvel. I could display them and show them to you if anybody's interested. Trading cards were a massive thing for me. Cost an absolute fortune. This is where you bought a packet or a box or what they called a crate or what you called a pallet. My God. So if you can imagine, there's a box, right? But they came in another box, which you would call a crate, which might have 9 boxes inside. And then those 9 boxes came on a pallet, which would be 9 boxes of 9. Some people bought pallets. And when these boxes were 100 quid each, that's a lot of capital. I usually bought 2 boxes and never had a complete set. And the reason for that is they did this numbering system. Like, you'll get one of these cards per 25 packs, one of these cards per box, one of these cards per pallet, right? So you had to have 9 in a crate and 9 of the crates to get a pallet. You'd have to buy the whole 9 times 9 to get this one card. And therefore, people that were shop owners would get that card and they would sell it for £1,000, because the only way that you could actually get that card guaranteed was to buy a pallet of 9 times 9 boxes. Oh, 9 times 9 times 9, actually. Right. Going past that, X-Files, Happy Memory. It had some duff episodes. There was some bits in it about the relationship that didn't work for me. There was the mystery of the cigarette man, the smoking man, I think. That was interesting. Towards the end, it got a bit silly. The conspiracies were well over the top. But nothing will take you away from that very first season, the very first good episode, which was the man that was going around eating people's livers to survive. Yeah. Because if you look in medical journals, early on, they said that if you ate liver, you would prolong your life, cleans your blood, that sort of stuff. Stupid, non-educational thoughts where we've learnt what the liver does, but it doesn't do anything if you eat it. So you make a sort of like an urban myth story. Great. We continue, though. I still haven't bought the 60th Doctor Who specials and have no intention of getting the Christmas Day special. I keep wondering what on earth I watched. So my question is, what is your opinion on Doctor Who Christmas special, and will you be getting a steelbook release of it? Wishing you and your mum a happy and prosperous new year. Well, when it comes to the steelbook release of the Christmas special, I think what they will do is add the Christmas special to the whole season 1 of this new Doctor. I don't think they'll do a Christmas special singularly, but the BBC might be greedy and do that. I've tended to always buy the Christmas specials as part of a season, and only bought the Christmas specials if I'm forced to do so as a singular. I think the last time that happened was Peter Capaldi, where you had to buy the Christmas special separately. It wasn't on the Jodie's box set. It wasn't at the end of the Peter Capaldi's box set. So you had to buy it separately. What did I think of the episode? I'd like to say piss awful. But again, to me, that episode is a pantomime. It's not Doctor Who, it's a pantomime. It's what you'd put on if Doctor Who was on a stage. So it was a stage play. And I've seen Doctor Who stage plays and got great enjoyment out of them. But that's what it was. It was singing, it was little gremlins, it was eating babies, it was... The good parts were the mystery parts. There's a woman in it called Mrs. Flood. I won't ruin it for everybody. Her character intrigues me. The chemistry between the Doctor and the new assistant called Ruby, unknown to me at the moment, but they seem to get on. There were tropes of the first episode of Rose on how they met and how they interacted, but nowhere near the finesse of Christopher Eccleston and that first story. So I'm going to just turn around and say, again, mixed, because to some people it's brilliant, and to other people it's the most god-awful, shitty Christmas special you'll ever see in your life. And I'm tending to be more to that side of things. and that's just my opinion. What else do you put? Will I be getting the steelbook release of it? If it appears in the first season and the first season goes well and I enjoy it, I might stop here. This might be the point where I watch Doctor Who and I just don't buy the episodes anymore. I didn't do that with Jodie Whittaker, so I did continue to buy them, and I waited until this one came along, and it's early days, isn't it? So we're in that early days phase, Ian, and thank you so much for your question. Brilliant. And Happy New Year to you. Wee Bob Art has written, I did watch this Dell, and like Alan said in his waffle today, I meant to leave a comment. Wandering Earth, that's a film, by the way, sounds interesting, so might need to watch it. We'll Google if there is a Wandering Earth 1. Yes, there is. It's just there isn't a steelbook of it. Anyway, I did watch your VR cabin video as well, and that leads me into a question for next week. Question, what VR game are your favourites? For me, on the PSVR, the Pinball FX2. And I also enjoyed the puzzle type games. Yes, I've got a number of VR games and I'm starting to play them. There is a game called Saints and Sinners, which is brilliant. I even like Angry Birds. In Angry Birds, if you can imagine it, you're holding the catapult and you're firing at the Angry Birds. And you can move your position from just being set to being over in different parts, like on hills and mountains, because you can. There's a little place holder that you can push on the joystick, and it'll zip you over to another view, and you can see the other side. That's quite good. And then there's a puzzle bobble version, like of Buster Move, that's in VR, which is quite nice. Not fantastic. And then I like this mixed reality. And the best game that I've played so far has got to be Red Matter 2. I just can't get over how immersive that game is. The graphics are fantastic. They're the sharpest I've ever seen up until Asgard's Wrath 2, which I've just put on. But the story is immense. It's like a mystery. And there's all this puzzle element to it and first person to it. And it's not a fiery, shooty first person shooter, which means I've got a chance of completing it. So that, again, is a top-notch one. I love the pinball. Like Main Meister, I bought the Star Wars pinball with a room, and you construct your room and you can put other pinball tables into it. I haven't really played Star Wars Squadron or any of that sort of stuff yet, so maybe I'll be doing that over the next couple of days. There is now a Steam link, wireless Steam link to my Steam account, which means I can start playing those now. And apparently there's very little lag, and the connection is really quite good. So I'm looking forward to that. So keep this spot open, because I'll be filling it probably with a little more information about that in the future. And I wish you a happy new year, and thank you so much for all of your time and for your hint on Rebella 7, the graphic program that I think everybody should have a quick look at the price that it is. Although you'll have to remind us, Wee Baba, I think the price has gone back to full price now. Shame. But people did have the chance. And we moved to LFC, and he's put, "Hi Del, great blog as usual, and I'm sure you and your mum had a wonderful Christmas. Bet you're still full from your roast and all those consumed sweets. I know I am." Well, I cooked the Boxing dinner, and my mum cooked the Christmas dinner. We only bought one tub of chocolates. We didn't buy multiple. We bought one tin of biscuits, which happened to be those ones with jammy Dodgers in it, weren't the full chocolate range ones. So I didn't get actually that full, and I didn't drink that much because of my tablets. So I haven't had one beer. I haven't had one alcoholic drink. That'll probably change tonight, because I will toast the new year in So wherever people have been having a drink and even the odd beer, I haven't had one. Been dizzy and giddy and all of that sort of stuff. I didn't think it was right. But thank you so much for that thought. Despite my dislikes for Manchester United as a Liverpool fan, I would never use it to ridiculous lengths you see from rowdy supporters who resort to being aggressive. Even I'm not that stupid enough to know the game isn't life or death. It's nothing more than a hobby. Hooliganism and all the bitterness that comes with it is such a stain on not just the sport but also to human civilization. Seeing a panorama documentary made in 1977 about Millwall, which someone uploaded on YouTube a while back, filled me with disbelief. Certainly an eye-opener. Yes, and I agree. And I've seen hooliganism from the 80s when I was going to see Coventry with my dad, and we avoided it like the plague, but it happened. And I can't not say that racism wasn't part of it. As much as there are heated debates between two sides about you're useless, we scored 3, you scored 1, blah, blah, blah. It would always, if that antagonist that said that happened to be of a different colour, it started mass. And I will say that a little bit because I saw it firsthand. I can't say it was at every place, and I can't say that was every reason, but I did see it myself. And I have to say, yeah, it goes on. Some people just want to cause fights. Apparently, when the coronation was going on and the protests about Islam and all that sort of stuff, football hooligans used that opportunity to get into the newspapers and TV screens by causing fights at those peaceful protest marches, and made it look like they'd started it themselves. They're known football hooligans. You're going to get caught, you'll know it's going to be you. Daft idiots. See what I mean? They just cause fights for fight reasons. It's stupid. Some excellent Cary Grant films discussed. Glad Operation Petticoat was talked about, as it's one I think that deserves almost as much attention as the other great he starred in. The Bishop's Wife is seriously good, and a favourite of my dad's. What an icon. Yeah, and there's an ITVX documentary called Archie, because obviously Cary Grant's name was not Cary Grant. I think, was it Archie Leach? Which is great to watch. It sort of like is an audience with Cary Grant split over 4 episodes, where he talks about Cary Grant being a character he made up and all of the things that went on. Question for the next blog: what are your 3 favourite comedy films of all time? Oh, you bastard. I mean that. I'm going giddy again. I mean that in the nicest possible way, because I avoid top 10s of all time, top 3s of all time. I'll mention 3 out the top of my head that come to mind every time I think of a comedy, and that is Some Like It Hot, the brilliant Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis and Marilyn Monroe film, Planes, Trains and Automobiles, just so heartwarming and funny, Steve Martin and John Candy, and Airplane. What Airplane was that quintessential comedy that when you first got your VCR was one of the first rentals that you'd get, because it was the talked about comedy right at 1980, and it was just gag after gag after gag with no stopping. Yeah, I'll mention those 3, but literally that's just off the top of my head. And if I was to write down every single comedy, I'd have a different 3. So it's really a difficult one to answer, because I think most people that do top 10s, it's very difficult, I would have said, for them, because how can you write down all the films from 1903 to 2023? Because you're never going to mention those early ones, and yet equally they were as fun as and entertaining to me anyway. So, yeah, not everybody's the same. Out of the following, which PS1 game do you personally think is the most groundbreaking? Tomb Raider, Final Fantasy VII, or Metal Gear Solid? Oh, again, two great questions. Didn't play much PS1, but I played every single one of those games, so I know what I'm talking about. Tomb Raider didn't start the 3D revolution, but kicked it up the arse and made it a top tier game. And the pure exploration of it is brilliant, but it is a run and gun in a lot of sections. Final Fantasy VII just pulled out all the stops when it comes to role-playing games. I think it's still considered a JRPG, where the battles are you attack, they attack, you attack, they attack till there's nobody left. But my God, the cutscenes, the size. It's the size of the project of Final Fantasy VII that I think impresses me the most. The story's immersive, but it's still not that immersive because I'm all for Arthurian Britain, knights, Merlin. Final Fantasy VII is not that. And Metal Gear Solid is stealth. It's stealth, and in 3D. Which one do you personally think is the most groundbreaking? I'm edging towards Metal Gear Solid, believe it or not. And every single one of those had groundbreaking elements. I've just mentioned what the groundbreaking element of Tomb Raider was, what Final Fantasy was, what Metal Gear Solid was. But Metal Gear Solid had for its time, a great story. It introduced stealth, and it was the first time it was brought out in 3D on the PS1. All three, therefore, are incorporated into that one. And so I would say is groundbreaking, but not innovative. Because some of the other games did it before it. Yeah? Great one. Thank you so much, LFC, and Happy New Year to you. I'm looking forward to your blogs this year, my friend. Robert's Retro Gaming. We all love Robert. Robert's been busy again. We'll come across that a little bit later on, but we'll read out his comments, which are always a joy. Hey, Del, this was a most enjoyable listen and watch. As always, I hope you and your mum are able to enjoy the season and give yourself a treat or two. Sports rivalries are fun as long as they are kept at that level. In my city, we have a nice rivalry with a city to the south, Calgary, for pretty much all of our sport teams. Of course, some people take it too far, which is sad and stupid. I actually work among people to keep it a friendly level whenever it comes up. Good for you, and that's how it should be, and that's how I want it to be as well. Just some stupid people. I'm also not a fan of the throwaway society. Let's work to build things that are repairable and can function for a long, long time. Yeah, bloody printers are the worst. I mentioned it last week. Ink costs so much that you might as well just throw away the printer you just bought and buy a new printer because it comes with ink in it. And of course, the printer manufacturers recognise this and only fill them with half-filled ink cartridges. But it's still cheaper. I mean, you can buy a printer these days for 30 quid, but the cartridges will cost you £45. Whichever way you look at it, you might as well just go, buy another printer. It's ridiculous. That's just one example. There are many others. I'd love to see a game collaboration between you and Steve. That would be fantastic. Yeah, that's that bloody Steve again. Saying, yeah, let's do a collaboration. I can't code a game. But I told you, I push myself. I'll have a try. I'll come up with an idea. Probably do the graphics for it. then I'll contact Steve and say, look, I'm this far in advance. Can you code any of this sort of stuff to make this zing? And of course I'll attempt to do that myself. But yeah, a collaboration, definite. If I speak to him, I'll definitely say, what do you want to do? Do you want to do the graphics? Do you want to do the sound? Do you want to do the coding? But it's just, I know that if he turned around and said, yeah, I'll do the graphics and sound, and leave me to do the coding, we got no chance of a good game, because coding would be the one thing that I'm the least good at. You see what I mean? I've just been no good at languages. The hardest language I've learned is not even a language of the world. It's SQL. And that's not a language. It's more a search string. Just to give you an example, select star from table where variable is this and variable is this. So where these two conditions are met from this table, give me a result. And then you have to, because of the way databases work, you do what they call inner and outer joins, where you say, put these two tables together and search for this key field and bring out this information. I could go on forever. But that's about the only language that I got any proficiency at. And that wasn't very good. I want to see the Wandering Earth movies. They do look a bit silly, but I can get past that if it's a good story. I can tell you now, I have watched Wandering Earth 2. It was silly, but it was entertaining, and it wasn't bad. So I was happy that I bought it at the cheap price I've got. The only downside was I haven't seen Wandering Earth 1. Stupid. But it's just I purchased steelbooks, and it was in a sale. And there is no steelbook of Wandering Earth 1 that was in this country at the time I bought it. So I'm looking out now for Wandering Earth 1, just so you know. Question: what's the next big movie or small movie coming out that you are excited for? Had this question the other day, by the way, in a movie chat channel on Friday, Scott's stream. Do go and watch Scott's stream. But we'll talk about that later. Some people asked, what is your most anticipated film of 2024? And I gave a couple out. I'm really looking forward to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, but I'm instantly hooked to Planet of the Apes because of my history with that film set. The new ones haven't been bad, and the old ones are quintessentially mine, nostalgia, everything. And the first Planet of the Apes, up there in the stratosphere for its shock ending and entertainment value for me. Do mention for me. Charlton Heston was brilliant. So Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I think there's The Quiet Place Day 1 is being made. And I liked the film The Quiet Place. So that would be an interesting one. One I'm not looking forward to, but I'm hopefully going to be wronged, is Gladiator 2 appears next year. And I can see that destroying all the goodness that came out of the first Gladiator film with Ridley Scott. Gladiator 2, what's it going to be like? Where do you go with it? Sometimes I just wish they'd leave it there. So there you are, a couple of ones there. I think there's some others. There's a film called If. I think there's a new Terrifier film. There'll be the obvious plethora of Marvel films. That's about it. Thank you so much, Robert. I do hope you get to opening your Steam at some point and accepting my gift to you. And Happy New Year to you, sir. Thank you so much for all your work this week, this year. My God. I would say the nicest thing I can say, it is the only Minecraft channel to watch of last year. If you want to know anything about Minecraft, go to Robert. We move to Colin. Colin has said, and he's a good friend, and we know all about how much he puts into it, into his support for me, which thank you so much. He says, football rivalry is bollocks. I don't mean the friendly banter, I mean real hatred. It must be more than a game, but it's not life and death, and why we all want our own team to win. There's no need for hatred of others. I see you've outgrown this as have I, but there's still too much of it. Biggest reason we can't travel faster than light. Here we go, fellas. Watch this. Biggest reason we can't travel faster than light. Everything already travels at the speed of light through space-time, just in different directions. The faster you go through space, the slower you go through time, and at the speed of light itself, you don't travel through time. Yes, photons do not experience time. This is a topic I understand well, and even the maths is relatively, pun intended, simple. It's Pythagoras. I always live in hope that I can be proven wrong, but so far, I see I was going to step in here. Laugh with tears coming out of my eyes face. Yes, because I know you know the subject well. I know a bit about it, but you'd rings rounds around me. But I stay optimistic that we haven't learned everything about maths. So I just live in hope. I don't diffuse the argument. I basically just say, on what we know now, yes. But it's what we know now, not what we know in the future, what we're going to discover. So, yeah, it's easy probably to diffuse the argument, but it's not an argument. It's a discussion. It's a debate. It's what you think. It's what you believe. It's what you know. You know far more. And I just end it there by turning around and going, good on you, because I'd love to be Brian Cox, be able to talk on a stage about it all and be intellectual. But I know enough to know what you say is true. And I also know that it doesn't affect my overjoyment of watching other screenwriters make a complete balls ache of a film based on time travel to make me laugh. So there we go. It doesn't cloud anything for me. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Alan, as it's that time of year. I know you also don't drink alcohol. I know you also don't drink alcohol to get drunk. But what drinks do you like purely due to their taste? Oh, well, whiskey. Everybody knows I like whiskey, but it must be a malt. Usually above 10 years, so 12 and aboves. Dunwinnie. I had a fantastic Dunwinnie 25-year malt whiskey that cost me the price of what would be the price of a bottle of whiskey for one shot. And it was gorgeous. Oh, so nice. I could just imagine me just blasting that whole bottle one night. What a waste that would have been. Because you have to savour those. I don't like drinking bitter much, but I like lager. And I like different lagers as well. I'm not into fruity lagers, but I like cider, so I like fruity ciders. They're nice tasting. I've never found the taste of vodka and Bacardi inviting. Port is okay. Don't like sherry. I like a port. Port's nice. That's about it alcohol-wise. Just never been a big stout drinker, bitter drinker. Don't know about it's got a bit of an aftertaste, I think. Thank you so much. I hope that answers your question. Mine's a whiskey whenever we meet. We move to Martroyd. Merry Christmas, my friend. It's Boxing Day here now, and I'm re-watching this as I only got about halfway through last night before nodding off. The live stream was great. Well done to you both. Oh, and thank you so much. Happy New Year to you, Martroid. Happy New Year to you, Colin. Thank you so much for those comments. We're approaching the end now. 2 more to go, and we move to my friend Steve. Gaming since the 70s. Steve, my salute to you, you bastard. You're too good. I have to think of a new salute for 2024. We'll come across that. Everybody knows that I know Steve well enough for me to do that. That doesn't mean everybody is invited to do that. He states, "Hi Del, great blog as always. Thanks for answering my questions so well as usual." You say that, I don't answer them well at all, but it gets easier with my blogs. I'm dropping a comment early this time, Christmas Eve, as I tend to spend the Christmas time with my wife and not holed up in my gaming room. So if I don't comment now, I might not do it. On time travel. Yes, I'd love to see the future, but I doubt it'll be as good as we might imagine it to be. Humanity has a mammoth weight hanging from its neck that we need to remove before we can truly advance, and that's religion. It needs filing back in the Middle Ages where it belongs. We'll never advance as a species until that nonsense is gone. Okay, that said, I'll now throw a question at you. What's the best and worst things that you ever got from a Christmas cracker? Take care, mate, and I hope you and your mum have a lovely Christmas and a happy New Year. Lots of love, Steve. Yes, and the same back to you, matey. And I hope, although I can never state you'll never get any troubles in the next year, I hope whatever troubles you have are small ones. You've had such a bad time, I think, this year with reliability issues and so forth, that I can only wish for more stability and happiness to you. And that comes from my heart to you. Thank you so much for all of your support. When it comes to the question, best and worst thing that you've ever got from a Christmas cracker, well, it's been a long time since I pulled a Christmas cracker. Last time would have been when my dad was alive. So we're talking 7 years. We don't get them out for mum and myself. A big box of crackers for one. But if I was to think back through the years, didn't we get some shit? Oh, for goodness sake, the jokes were bad. The hat was bad. The plastic shit you got with it was bad. But the worst one, the best one, I think, was a compass. At least that worked. And I had a really, really deluxe compass come out of one once. They were £5 a cracker, and the compass in it was worth 15 quid. One of those deluxe ones that you bought when I bought a box from work. That's right. That was not used. And they said, we won't be using them next year, so you can buy it. So I bought it, and I bought it at, it was supposed to be £100 for a box of crackers. I bought it for 15 quid. Yeah, brilliant. And some top-notch stuff in there. I mean, you weren't going to get an Apple iPad out of it, but But I think the worst one was, and I never understood it, was I got a Ludo man. If you ever play Ludo, you've got a little bod-type character who's got a bulbous head with a skirt. So I pulled this cracker. Joke was crap. Put the hat on. And what did I get? A little Ludo character. What's the use in that? What am I going to do with that? What, flick it about? My finger? Projectile Ludo Olympics? I mean, the whistles were great. The compasses were great. Even the jokey spider with a piece of string on it to scare your sister with it, or put it in the dinner or whatever it was. There's a spider in your dinner. Because I used to do crap like that. Is all right. But a Ludo character? Yeah. I think I've got to turn around, Steve, and say that was probably the worst cracker gift. What are yours out there, supporters of this channel? What bad crap have you had out of crackers? Because you might have done them this year. You might have seen some real corkers. Jesus. Like one stickle brick. What are you going to do with that? One Lego piece. I don't know. Anyway, great question. Happy New Year to you, Steve. Thank you very much. And we get to the last but not least, Paul Patrick. Paul has stated, Merry Christmas, Del. I enjoyed watching your Christmas special with Denny, reminiscing about Christmas past. Hope you and your mother are well. Sorry to hear about your back pain issues. In addition to the stretches and exercise, it might be worthwhile trying out a spiky massage ball as well to see if it helps ease the pain on the trigger points. Funnily enough, you should mention that. I wondered about one of them balls, but somebody pointed out to me that you can buy a cushion which has got little balls the other side. When you put your pressure on it, it vibrates. And if you have it with the balls the other way round, so that they're facing into your back and you lean back on it, it not only vibrates, but those balls move into the gaps. And you can buy leather versions of these cushions. So I'm looking possibly into that this year. You continue. Garmin smartwatches are a nice bit of kit and definitely help track and keep you motivated with exercise. I treated myself to an Epix 2 last year, which has a nice bright AMOLED touch screen and was a nice upgrade from the Forerunner 935, which I had for 5 years. Oh, the Forerunner series. They were brilliant. Yeah. The reason I moved to a Fenix was I wanted something that was all-encompassing without having USB dangling devices off of your laces and things like that. Ones that would measure your cadence and so forth a little bit more accurately. But more than anything else, I wanted it to count my steps for my walking, and I wanted to know whether my also wanted to know whether my cadence was improving and whether my heartbeat was erratic. And although these are not medical devices, they give you enough of an indication. Do you know what I mean? The Fenix is the top of the range. And I decided if I'm really, really seriously about this walking nonsense, I need to spur myself on. So I bought the most expensive in that range, which well at the time was a Fenix 3 Sapphire, I think it was. No, yeah, Sapphire. It was the one with the sapphire crystal display and the larger face, watch face. And it was £500-600. That won't buy you now the smallest edition in the latest one. I think it's up to Fenix 7 now, and Fenix 8 is this year. But I've got a Fenix 6 now, and it does the job, and the battery should last a couple more years. At the moment, I'm charging it every 23 days. It was on, when I bought it a year and a half ago, 29 days a charge. So it is decreasing, don't get me wrong, but it's decreasing quite slowly. So I think I've got another couple of years out of it. So that's great. I'm going to need to check out that Cary Grant movie that you mentioned, The Bishop's Wife. I have the Denzel Washington, Whitney Houston remake, The Preacher's Wife, which I liked. Yes, very, very good. The Bishop's Wife, I like. I think you'll like it if you like the Preacher's Wife, for definite. Do you plan on getting True Lies on 4K UHD? Question mark. It seems that it's quite controversial release with the sharpening and noise reduction resulting in an inconsistent image. It will be the first time that True Lies is available officially on Blu-ray, which is a real surprise for such a popular 90s movie. Yes, and I could go on with that because there are some inconsistencies. I haven't heard too much about True Lies, but I think Lionsgate and James Cameron would have learned from Terminator 2 not to put too much dynamic noise reduction on. That being said, you need a little bit. The film stock was only as good as the film stock there, and the lighting in his films tend to be quite low, giving quite a high amount of grain. But I'd rather him leave the grain there than make everybody look waxy. The biggest news story of this week is The Abyss, where UK at the moment is the only country that will not be getting that film because our British Board of Censorship have banned once again one scene in the film where you see animal cruelty, I suppose is the word they want to use, which shows an animal in distress, but a minute later its distress is gone and it's perfectly fine. Now, in the past, they didn't cut that scene out. They moved to another scene where you saw the reaction on the people's faces while this was going on, and then it cut to the scene with the rodent perfectly okay again a minute later, and everything is fine. James Cameron says, I'm not cutting it again. It is as it is. If you don't accept it in your country as it is, then ban it. But I'm not going to make another cut. Good for him. Because I tell you what, if the British Broadcasting, the censorship, British Broadcasting Censorship, are stupid enough to do this, then basically we'll just all import it. You'll get it from the States, you'll get it from France, you'll get it from Spain, you'll get it from Germany. So as far as I'm concerned, stuff you. And that ends the rant on The Abyss. So you end at the end. Another quick question. What's your favourite Arnie movie? Oh, God. I do like Arnie films. But if you were to push me, I'll go with Total Recall. So hard, though, because I love Commando. I love Predator. There's been the Terminator films. But I'll go with Total Recall because it scratches that itch of practical effects, special effects, science fiction, and a cracking score. Jerry Goldsmith. But it was a hard one because, most people will say Terminator or Terminator 2. But I'm going to go beyond the norm and just go Total Recall and say that there. And that's the end of the questions. Thank you so much. We can now cut to getting to the end of the stream. I thought it was going to be a quick one this week, but it looks like it's going to be slightly longer. But remember that there hasn't been much to watch, and there's not been much from you guys either. So we'll run through this very quickly. This Week in Retro did a special that was 40 or 50 minutes long, which were unseen bits from 2023 and outtakes. Funny, nice, nothing new, no topics. So great. Happy New Year to you guys. Looking forward to This Week in Retro all next year. And Techmoan did a train game. Now this was interesting. It's one of the ones where there is only new content in some of this stuff, right? He bought a self-contained train game, which was a controller that you plugged into your telly. The game was already built into the controller, and you learn to drive a bullet train in Japan. There is a Switch version of it, which you can buy the controller separately, and it's exactly the same game, but the controller is a little bit more top end, really, believe it or not. The self-contained controller was robustly made, but the comfort and the switches were much better in the Switch version. I sent a copy of this to Discord for Colin to watch. I said, "Here, Colin, look, learn how to drive." And he came back and he said, even if it's a game, I only drive trains if I'm paid. What a great answer. That's the sort of banter I like. So Tech Moan is worth watching if you're into those sort of like specialist games with specialist controllers. You know, you must have seen them, like 18-wheel trucker and all that sort of stuff. What else did I watch? I watched something called DF Clips. That's D for Derek, F for Freddy Clips. And they asked the question, why did the Xbox backwards compatibility stop? Was it the tech or was it a licensing issue? So if you're ever unsure on why that's happened, go and watch this channel. They deliberate exactly on that problem. Sorry, my back started to play up a little bit. That's definitely worth a watch. Then we've got the Cult of Mush, or Cold Beer. 2 independently channels, Cold Beer or Cult of Mush. And the reason that I watched that and so much of it this week is it was the best buys in the Steam winter sale. So every year there's a winter sale on Steam. It lasts until January 4th. And basically they swap about all of the sales stuff. And if you go to any of these channels, they'll tell you this is the best one for $5, this is the best one for $10, etc., etc. And I do buy games, so I do watch those channels an awful lot. Then there was a site that I found called Flat Life. And they did the Evolution of Consoles range. Now, I thought it was just one. It was the evolution of the Sega console, right? It's really quite good. But when I actually looked at the rest of the channel, they've done it for Sony, and they've done it for Sega, and they've done it for Atari. And I think there's probably a couple more. But they do what they tend to do is comparisons, the evolution of animation, the evolution of music in games, the evolution of stories in games, etc., etc., etc. Really quite good. Flat Life. And then you've got another channel, My Mate Vince, purely because I wanted to watch some fixing videos, you know, fix electronics. I watched his channel and he was fixing something that I was intrigued on, which was a Kingston 240 gig SSD drive, because I've always wanted to know what the reliability of an SSD drive is and what generally goes. Is it capacitors? Is it whatever? And I learned something about a particular chip that's inside these SSDs. It's called, I think, a fusion chip or a fission chip. Fission chips. Get it? Fission chips. Which is what they call the hard drive controller chip. That goes, you've lost everything, and it's a ball to desolder and resolder because it's got, I think, 128 balls of solder underneath the chip. Oh, so when you're looking for another SSD drive, avoid ones with that chip in it. You're going to have to look at a lot of forums to find out which hard drives don't use that chip, but apparently it's worth doing. And then we've got all of the other stuff, you know, where I do go to the movie channels and all of that sort of stuff. So there is Rock God, Scott Movie Critic, Euphoria Pictures, Did You See That, Forgotten World of Movies, which I generally partake in. Every single one has taken a little bit of a break. All still worth watching. Please watch them in the new year. Ones that didn't do nothing this week is Rock God. He did specifically something other than unboxing what I got for Christmas, is what I'm saying. Every single one of those did a video this week, but they were unboxing what I got this Christmas. Yeah. So Rock God did a video on nasties. Ian the Hill Ramblings did his review of Doctor Who episodes, Hammer Horrors of Horror episodes, etc. Did You See That did the worst films of 2023. Brilliant, watch that. And yeah, I think that just about covers it. All the others did a open at Christmas video, which is brilliant because I get to see what my friends got for Christmas. But the other thing is, they are related to their films, but they're not describing something like what the first 25 Section 1 banned films were, say, like with Rock God. So it all returns back to normal next week. Make a note of all of those names: Rock God, Scott the Movie Critic, Euphoria Pictures, Did You See That, Forgotten World of Movies. Don't think I've missed anybody there. Oh, and Ian the Hill Ramblings. Because they'll all be worth watching in the new year. And then we get to your stuff. And as I said, it's slim pickings here. So Down the Rabbit Hole didn't do a video between Christmas and New Year. Good for him. Needs a break. Needs to have a relaxing time with loved ones and friends. Yeah? We're his friends. We're still going to be here. We're still going to be watching. Have a bit of time off. You know, it's too early before you go back to work. So nothing from him this week. So we moved to gaming since the 70s. And like I say, Steve just blows them out the water. He did a game picker wheel, which is a wheel full of games that you pick. And he did one for the C64, one for the Spectrum, and one for the Atari. He did a special on the PS1 game Devil Dice, which was interesting and intriguing. I'm no good at puzzle games myself, but he did incredibly well on there. And he showed a game he bought this Christmas, or a couple of Christmases ago, called Dinkum. And it's very much like Stardew Valley and all of those sort of games. He wanted to show off what a modern one looks like now, and one that he's having quite fun with. Definitely worth a watch. Thank you so much, Steve, for all your efforts. Thank you very much. Happy New Year to you. Robert's Retro Gaming, we move to now, and his rollout continues apace. He continues his Euphoria range of playing. So out of his Steam library, he's playing a game called Euphoria, and it's episode 10 now. He got his Minecraft out and started to play with that, and is now up to episode 110. He did some Atari 8-bit games, which were Topper, E.T., amongst others. And then he got a Christmas gift from Steve, and his nicest thing was, he said, "Steve, you bought me a game. I think it's only right that I show people what you bought me." And of course it was Ori and the Blind Forest, which I've got in my collection as well. It's a brilliant sort of 2.5D game. It's slightly 3D, but sideways scrolling, but beautifully hand-drawn graphics, animation sublime, brilliant. We move to Seb's. Happy New Year to you, Robert, and thank you so much for your output. I can't wait to see what you're going to bring out this year. Seb's Place didn't really have a video, but he did announce the competition winner for his last video. You had to find 5 computer objects in his last video, so the announcement was given. 20th Century Gaming, that's my mate Mark, did 2 Commodore 64 streams, one last night and one earlier in the week. Both brilliant. That guy can play 64 games like nobody else. Immense player. Even Ponder got a video out this week. He did a Mainmeister high score kerfuffle on Thunder and Lightning. And I've sort of like learned why I've not been seeing too much of Ponder's stuff is because I'm not using Twitch much anymore. I must admit, Twitch is not for me. Because all these floaty hearts and winnings and 29 months of subscribing and all that shit gets in the way. I'd rather have the adverts in YouTube. Plus, there's a minute-long advert every time I opened up Twitch that pissed me off. So, yeah, that's the reason why I haven't seen so much of Ponder. But he did transfer one of his Twitch recordings to YouTube, and I managed to watch what I was missing all those last couple of weeks. That was brilliant. We haven't heard of the name Magda for a while. She's that friend that was going on a YouTube journey herself, and she hadn't done anything for 3 or 4 months, and she finally put a video out where at Christmas Eve a dog that has been constantly going to her house wanting to come in and stay she eventually went round to the owners to say, would you like to get rid of the dog? You know, would you like to sell it to me? Because the dog, when it ever gets out, comes to her house. And at first they said no. But then we learn a little bit that the owner of the dog is 84, can't really walk the dog anymore. The dog keeps getting out. And I believe because Magda can give the dog to a better home, finally agreed to sell the dog to her, which means a happy ending. So that was nice to watch. It was sort of like watching a mini Christmas movie. Very nice. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you, Magda, and I hope for better things this year. Then we get LFC, who just brought out a Christmas message. He wanted to wish everybody a Christmas message. He was playing Tomb Raider, and basically he was just reading out how unwell he's been and what his future of his channel is and when he'll be back in the new year, which is wonderful. Take that rest, LFC. Thank you so much for your input this year. You've entertained me so much. Thank you so much. And I've learned so much about blogs from just looking at other blogs like yours. And lastly, but not least, my mate Mainmeister. He did a Nice and Nasty podcast with Dan Woods. Always worth a listen is the Nice and Nasty podcast. And then he did a Friday Waffle where he mentioned a few home truths. You know, like you can only really do his type of waffle if you start asking questions or bringing in topics. Etc., etc. And there is never a truer word said. I find it difficult to think of a topic. I live and breathe because of the questions. So long may that happen. And that's the end, other than what arrived this week. And as I said, because of Christmas, nothing arrived. So there's no trailers to watch because it's all the same Christmas shit that you've been watching. What's the point of putting up a trailer of Elf? Do you see what I mean? So the only thing that arrived for me was a book I bought called Spider-Man by Chip Zdarsky. This is a writer that really reinvigorated Spider-Man in the 2000s. Chip Zdarsky. He's done a number of stories called Spider-Man Blue, Spectacular Spider-Man Run, and Spider-Man Life Story. It's a beautiful book. Look at the artwork on that. That's Neil Davis, I think. I think it is. Doesn't say, but it looks like Neil Adams, actually. And then on the back, you've got just a simple set of pictures, but it just looks so lovely. Look at that on the spine. Gorgeous. And it was an expensive book, and one that I had to pay full price because, again, I pre-ordered it, but when I got hacked, I had to reorder it, and so therefore the pre-order price guarantee was different. I haven't opened it yet because I know about every comic that's in there, but I've now got it in a deluxe edition, larger size, and recolored. So that's wonderful. And that's the end of my stream, guys. Just gonna have a bit of a drink. On reflection, 2023. It never fulfilled my potential. It never fulfilled my dreams. And I'm glad to see the back of it. Things can only get better. I'm hoping that work improves because there were so many deficiencies at work that I can't see how it can be any worse. In other words, I want to start doing things new. I want to be able to progress and become a manager again. I don't want sit on my laurels and see stuff that I want to do being passed to other people. That's got to stop. I want better telly, stuff on TV. I want better things for my friends. Like I say, 2023 just had so many negatives. It outweighed the positives. But I'm going to go away knowing that I got through it. I'm a better man for it. I've learnt so much. I've been fully entertained by you guys. YouTube again comes out top. Who'd have thought? And all I can do is just hope that I've got the energy and the patience to reinvigorate myself January 2nd, to push myself harder and get those things that I think I deserve, but I will work my arse off to get. And with that, many happy New Years to you. Do drink too much. Why not? Do eat too much. Why not? It's one day. Get it out your system. And let's start celebrating next year. And with that, salute. Thank you so much for watching. And here's to the next one. Bye-bye.